George Miller's Mad Max franchise is back after a 9-year wait with this origin story for Furiosa, simply titled Furiosa. This is a franchise which has been very fun watching from the start all the way to now, given where it's come from with such a minuscule budget. I had seen Fury Road before, but this is the first time I've gone all the way back to the beginning and watched the original trilogy. So with that, we are now going to rank all 5 Mad Max movies from the worst to the best. But before we get into it, please let me know what your ranking is. This is such a long-running franchise with some great highs but some real lows, so I'd be interested to hear what your ranking would be. And yeah, without further delay, let's get into it. Beyond Thunderdome was the first time that the Mad Max franchise had hit 8 figures in terms of budget, and while that was utilised well to pull off some massive action sequences and fantastic product design with this world building, other than that, this film is very hollow and bland. Besides these two mentioned aspects and the appearance of Tina Turner, Beyond Thunderdome doesn't really offer anything else. There's no real originality. You know, it's fine using a familiar story if you're gonna kind of put a twist on it, and despite this taking place in a very unique world, it doesn't stand out or feel any different to what we've seen before. The jump from R to the PG-13 rating damages the previously beloved explicit action. You know, it has to be toned down a bit, and speaking of that, it also damages the tone because we are used to this dark, gritty and quite gross tone that was placed throughout the first 2 films, and that's quite absent here. It's lost that gritty edge to it, and it kind of takes the viewer out of the experience, especially when they've been so engaged in the previous 2. It is clear that this film had 2 directors, as the tone and direction was going in different directions, and there doesn't seem to be a clear goal at the end of the day. The budget is deployed well to ensure that action is still good, maybe not as great because of that age rating, but nonetheless, this is easily in last place for me, and I'd say for many people as well.
On the licorice ride, motorbikes and leather men.
In such a popular franchise, it's very rare to see the first entry so far down on this list, but I think in this context it makes sense. Mad Max was literally built upon a shoestring budget, consisting of a budget of $300,000, but with that came a lot of character and authentic grittiness which has been so beloved throughout this whole franchise. A word I like to use to describe this Mad Max franchise is the word anarchy and maybe even chaos, because from minute 1 to the end there's just full-on energy, gasoline, just big action set pieces and explosions, and it just adds some real character to this film, makes it a big product of its time, which for some is a bonus because it's like a time capsule going back and viewing this, but it adds plenty of style to this film, not to mention the generic badass of Mel Gibson in this film as well. Given that minuscule budget, there was little room for error when it came to stunts, so the ones that are executed really do hit home and deliver such a thrilling experience because they are real car crashes and explosions. So big props to the stunt team there and everyone involved in that. This film's restrictions are cleverly used to its advantage, where they didn't really have the budget to make a full-scale post-apocalyptic world. They used some rundown towns, made that feeling of what is starting to be a post-apocalyptic world. You know, there's still some kind of civilization rocking about, some kind of order, before things completely descend into chaos. It's just that sprinkle of a post-apocalyptic world which isn't really seen too much in films these days. It's always just a big jump to a complete barren wasteland or abandoned buildings, but here we still see some kind of civilization. From a filmmaking point of view, this might not be fantastic at all. There's over-editing, the overall tones maybe a bit too campy in areas, but nonetheless, as I said, it's a product of its time, which is why many have loved it. This is my first time watching it, and so I don't have that nostalgia for it, but I can see where that love does come from. It's a thrilling adventure full of fantastic action, especially for such a small budget. It just makes it all even more impressive. Now, this is the perfect blend of that action and just overall tone. You know, there's an increase in budget here, obviously, following on from Mad Max's success, and that budget increase allows for this concept to thrive. The campy tone is maintained, but deployed more for all audiences rather than just quite a niche one. But besides that, the main appeal here has always been that action and even that post-apocalyptic world. Given the budget that they've received for this film, a lot of that was allowed to thrive. As fun as that action in the first film was, here it's just on another level. It's absolutely brilliant. That world you're allowed to actually see different places of, where it's obvious that they're actually building this stuff for the sake of this film. So just stuff like that. You always have restrictions with a small budget, so when a studio does actually give you an increased budget, you can really improve upon your work if it's utilized right, and in this case it was. The story is stronger due to what they're allowed to do with this whole world, and not to mention just the stuff they're allowed to blow up with these action scenes. It's all such a thrilling ride. Although saying that, while this budget is 100 times more than its predecessor, this is still quite a small budget film, and yes, it has been inflation, so I am factoring that in. It's still relatively small budget film, so even what is managed to be pulled up here is a big testament to George Miller, as it is fantastic. The newly released Furiosa clocks in at second place here, and this was an absolute blast. I know I had decided my ranking already, but then I decided to check out other people's rankings, and a lot of people have this one beneath Road Warriors, but I feel as though, due to just the sheer scale of this film, the fact that the story is executed well and all of the actors put in a good performance, it just felt necessary to put above Road Warriors. Furiosa was such a popular character in the Fury Road film, so it felt only natural to give her a origin story, this time with different actresses portraying her. We had Elila Brown and Anya Taylor-Joy, of course, both playing kind of different roles of this character, obviously one being younger and one being older, but I thought they both did brilliantly and had some real moments to shine. I didn't expect to see as much of Elila Brown, kind of shared pretty much 50-50 or maybe 60-40 in favour of Anya Taylor-Joy, but nonetheless I was surprised at how much we got to see her as a kid, but the execution was effective. We'll discuss it more in a bit, but the Fury Road tone and world and action and all that was so unique and so different from what we'd seen before, and it just feels so naturally translated into this film. Obviously we have a lot of the same crew coming back, including George Miller, so that helps, but it all just feels part of this same world, which is a feeling which isn't always easy to do in franchises. And not only does it feel like it's in the same world, more depth is given to different locations, different characters, all of that stuff. It's just very effective storytelling. One of those being Dementus, played by Chris Hemsworth, who's so menacing in this villainous role. One of the few times I've seen him portray a villain, and it's very refreshing and nice to see him use his native accent. If you've seen Fury Road, you know what you're in store for with this film. Amazing practical effects, which continues to blow my mind even though I saw Fury Road in 2015. Seeing very similar stunts in this day never gets old, so it's a real testament to that. I didn't find it as strong as Fury Road, hence why it's in second place. I couldn't really put my finger on why that is exactly. I think it might have just been that emotional connection was stronger in Fury Road than here, and the story might have been better, but this is still a very strong action film, and one which I'm quite surprised to see is bombing at the moment in cinemas. But I think Fury Road was always going to come in at first place at the end of the day. George Miller has directed every single one of these films, even Beyond Thunderdome, he directed part of it. So it's very satisfying to see how he's taken this franchise from literally pennies and brought it up into this gargantuan franchise, and it's all culminated in this film here. Everything is increased. Production quality, whether that be the actual set pieces, costumes, sheer scale of action, and just the world it's made to feel, it's all gargantuan. It's very impressive where this has come from. But even besides that, the script, the story is very strong and compelling. After a 30-year wait between films, Mad Max Fury Road delivers big time on everything a Mad Max fan would want. Everything is improved upon, even if that previous film was Beyond Thunderdome. Post-apocalyptic films are a common occurrence, yet only few have managed to create a world so unique and compelling like Mad Max Fury Road has. It's no surprise that this film took home so many awards, especially in the stunt department, because by God, these action sequences are some of the best of all time. I do not hesitate when saying that. But not just that, the cinematography combined with them as well is off the charts, and Even the cinematography used in the more quieter scenes, it just shows the versatility is strong and very efficient with how it handles the emotions. As I mentioned, this franchise has seen plenty of highs and plenty of lows, and I'm gonna be honest, plenty of those highs come in this film with essentially none of the lows being present here at all. So for me, it was no-brainer that Mad Max Fury Road came in at first place for me and for many people. So that is my ranking of all 5 Mad Max movies. I don't think that's too controversial of a list. I know I do have some opinions which aren't too popular every now and then, but I think I'm fairly safe on this one. I would like to hear yours though, as I said, and if you could like and subscribe, that would also be amazing. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.